Welcome to the Instinctive Influencers podcast, a show where influence becomes one of your tools for success. Now, here are your hosts, Brian Weber and Ed Haley.
Hi, I'm Brian.
And I am Ed.
Ed, you got a little too deep in your reading there, man. And this is the Instinctive Influencers podcast. We thank you for joining us today. You was that you picked up? Was that the NCO guide you got there?
Well, it's a little more antique than yours, but yeah, it was.
I need to find me one. I want to find one of those old ones, man. I like what some of the stuff says and how you can use it and stuff. But this new one, I am going to read an excerpt out of it in a little bit. I really like how they put this together, man. So, Mr. Travelocity here, all over the world you go. You got more countries under your belt than most people. But I wanted to bring up, you just did a little celebrity party yesterday with some friends, and you dressed up as...
I dressed up as the Canadian national treasure, Ryan Reynolds, from the Free Guy movie.
Did you see it yet?
I did. It's very good. It's a very interesting premise.
I've heard the same thing over and over again by people. So yeah. Michelle and we're interested in seeing it. Definitely,
it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's. At first, I saw it. I was intimidated. I was like, I think he's dressing as Peter Griffin. And then I had to zoom in, and I saw your name tag, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. So,
yeah, when you watch the movie, you'll really get it then.
Oh, okay, yeah, definitely. So life's throwing you a bunch of curves, or are you just kind of on the easy trail right now?
Yeah, just busy. No, it's been pretty easy. The only curve is I keep coming home on a Friday, and then Saturday we want to do stuff together, and then Sunday I should be cutting grass, but I've said before, here in beautiful Germany, you cannot cut your grass on Sunday. So my grass is like Jumanji right now.
Yeah, brother. So you can almost see the size of my room in a sense in here. There's a couch back here and stuff. My lawn is maybe two times the size of this room. Maybe, if I'm lucky. Maybe.
And you have grass?
I'm going to Sergeant Major Academy. I'm supposed to.
Oh, that's really Ethan, get off that grass.
No, it's actually, so he if he does it, he gets $5 to do it. So they get certain things.
He only gets $5 for cutting the lawn.
Not that much grass.
It's a million degrees, Brian.
First thing, it's my lawnmower. Okay. Second thing is $5. Come on, $5, man. It's not that big. Like,
you're robbing that kid.
Small.
You know what? One of our listeners is going to call the people on you. You're robbing that kid. It's 1,000 degrees, and you have your poor son out there. Well, just because he says when life gets hard, make it harder, does not mean for you to make it harder. Like,
no. So first thing is he doesn't do it in the middle of the day. We usually do it early in the day or the late day. Okay. First thing. Second thing is I usually have to go behind him and fix all the. He's not. It's hilarious. I tell him, hey man, you missed a mohawk there, because he'll go down, come back, and he'll just totally miss a strip and go down there and just be a mohawk right down there. But he makes plenty of money off of me. This guy, man, he gets money for that. He gets money for things he does at school. But I will say, I had a proud dad moment yesterday, buddy. We're coming out of the Dollar Tree, because that's like a place to go, and they have a Dollar Tree on post, by the way. It's pretty cool. We're coming out of the Dollar Tree. We come out. We're walking away from the door. He notices two ladies walking up to the door. What does Ethan do? He runs back real quick and opens the door for them. And I was like, dang, man, like that's awesome,
It's my boy.
It's a little gentleman. Awesome. It's a little gentleman. Yeah, I was pretty happy with that, Yeah. But it's funny. So if you think about it, a lot of stuff he does or he's been doing, it makes me think about what we're going to talk about today. We're going to look to do about a 3 to 4 part series here. Those of you listening, we want to really kind of like, I know we've done some shows in the past about it, but now we have video and everything else. But we want to kind of like go in the area of coaching, mentoring, training, and then kind of bringing it together type thing. And it's funny because what he's doing is very much that. It's like that. I coach him through things like that or mentoring him. And it's nice to see that kind of evolving with the little dude. So yeah, it's just really cool.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think there's some episodes that we've done and we did well. I think we could revisit and do again,
Oh
and
yeah.
maybe not trying to make them better, but actually to give more information, or I mean, and then both of us have had more experiences, and you've worn the diamond twice now, and so when we first started out, you hadn't been a first sergeant yet. Well, officially a first sergeant. You'd been in the position, but so
No, yeah.
those experiences, and I mean, when we started out, I was a staff or sergeant first class, so I've been promoted and into different leadership positions, and so I think
I think we
helps.
both were. We were both sergeant first classes when we started this show.
Yeah, not very
absolutely.
long, but yeah, I caught you once. I won't catch you again.
Oh,
we're the same right now, but here in a few months.
Now it's going to take a lot longer for me. Yeah. No, I think
But
you're
yeah,
right,
so-
man. Like, it's hitting upon those same topics, and then we actually we've experienced different things. You with what you do there, especially in Germany, me here, and then the different units we've been a part of. Like, it's almost like it would be fun to revisit some of these things, because now it's like, okay, now I've experienced this. I really understand this. I have experience, which the experiential learning model, that's what we could go off of, to help us like really like tie it together better. So we may, so one of those shows that we did, and I'm listening to it now, man. It's that Eric Baum book Legend about Roy Benavidez, and I'm like,
oh yeah,
I felt like we did a good show. I really did.
yeah.
But it's like, it's almost like, I wish people understood. Like I get goosebumps when I think about it. Like we were riding back. We went to a national park yesterday, and we were riding back, and we're listening to the kids are in the back seat, and they're playing the games and stuff, and we're listening to the book. And there are moments in that book that I know I've read. I've already read it a couple times, and I still get goosebumps. And I'm just like, I wish people knew what such a national treasure that he was. I mean, it's insane. And actually, Ed, so before we get into this, like, one of the cool things, and I'm excited to do this paper. I have to do it's an overall paper. It's called a professional. It's called a PWP, professional writing paper. Anyways, and you get to select what topic you want. And one of them is the Roy Benavidez resiliency paper, and I'm like, I'm doing that. Like, that's, I have to do it. Like, if I don't do that paper, then I'll feel like I'm not doing the justice. And what I want to do, so there may be people listening now, like Myrta, who's in the same department as me. What I want to do is I want to take the childhood of Roy Benavidez and show how that helped him become more resilient later down the road, establishing the persona that he was and everything he was, because that childhood was a tough childhood. And then when you equate that to the, like the programs we have in the Army, like we have, like, when I say this, like literally at DOD schools or schools on post, they actually have MFLACs that go into these schools and help children understand resiliency. So I want to tie those. I want to tie those together. And once I'm done, I actually want to send it to you. By the way, Thomas Bramer did ask me when he's talking about papers. We're talking about papers. He asked me for your paper again, man. So you got to send it at some point.
Yeah,
you
I don't have my whiteboard convenient to write a note, but I do need to send it.
Yeah. Okay. So you just send it to me, and I'll take care of it. I'll get it to Tom, because he did ask me. I was like, that's crazy. Like, he actually really wants to read your paper. So
make a note on the post-it here.
Hey, you got Post-its? Also, Myrta did make a comment on our Facebook page. He's still waiting on his signed Post-it from you. So way to go, buddy. Way to be a disappointment. No.
So much pressure.
Yes, exactly. So those of you listening today, we are getting into some really cool stuff today. You're going to put it over the camera? Is that what you're looking to do? We're actually going to get into a topic that we have discussed before. Like I said earlier, it's going to be about coaching. But what we're going to look over is we're going to look at basically 12 different rules to effectively help coaching within an organization. And we're going to kind of hit upon each one of these 12 rules. We shouldn't spend too much time on them. What I did want to do is this is a manual that is actually people can get if they want to, if they actually want to understand like a lot of the things that Ed and I talk about as what we call as non-commissioned officers or NCOs. It's called the NCO guide. And what it does is it kind of gives us an outline of kind of like what our responsibilities are and how we can go about them and just the different things. Well, in the newer one, in chapter 3, they actually get into coaching and mentoring. And then they have a whole nother chapter just dedicated to training. And what I want to do is I want to read off this paragraph it had about coaching, what it says. And then I think it'll help us kind of dive into these 12 rules. So here it says, counseling relies primarily on teaching and guiding to bring out and enhance capabilities already present. Coaching is a developmental technique used for skill, task, and specific behaviors. The coach helps them understand their current level of performance and guides them to reach the next level of development. Coaches should possess considerable knowledge. I like that part. Considerable knowledge in the area in which they coach others. So, and that's a real short little paragraph. It's kind of giving you an insight of like, hey, we know this individual is familiar with us, and we just need to develop their techniques or develop something about them to help them along. We know we're an expert in that field, or maybe we've mastered that field to a certain level that we can help somebody else, right? That's kind of where it goes is, hey, this is what you need to be able to do to be able to help these individuals. And it's a quick read. Ed, you look like you're intensely studying something. What is it, my friend?
No. So I was just looking at the difference. So that portion is not in this antique that I have, but there is mentorship and teaching in there, motivation. Yeah. So I was just looking and trying to see if I could find where you were, if it was in here, but is not. Maybe somewhere
so it's a good update.
It's a good update. I want a hard copy though. I have the PDF. I want the hard copy. Let me see what I can work.
They're not hard to get, bro. I'm telling you, I'm like you. When it comes to these things, I do like the hard copy sometimes. I prefer, like we talked about, electronic version because I can do a search real quick. So, but yeah. So we're going to get into these 12 rules of effective ongoing. It says employee coaching, but you can use subordinate coaching, peer coaching, whatever it is. You have anything you wanted to hit upon before we dive into it, Ed?
No, Brian. So I looked it over. And I came up with some notes, and I thought it was some good stuff. I also thought there's a lot of stuff that we could tie to stuff we've said on the show before, things that we've discussed in depth on the show before. So I think that means that we're doing a good job, maybe putting out information that it links all together like that. But yeah, let's. I think we could get into it, Brian.
Absolutely. So right now, basically, the way you see it is these are just like 12 steps that kind of help you, guide you. None of them it's not linear. It's more like a spider web of like what you can do. You're constantly changing things, right? The role of a coach is extremely valued in athletics. That's how this starts off. And I can see that, right? I'm a coach of a Premier League football team, fantasy football. Yes. And if people can't see behind Ed, he has his 5 trophies, 3 being Lego version. And I'm just going to put it out there. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'm going to be, Ed, I'm going to be in the championship game this year. So it's going to happen.
How'd your first week go?
It's not done yet. We're still in it. Even though you got, though he's got 70 points on me.
Thanks for spotting me 70.
Okay, so if there's anybody out there that wants to coach me through proper fantasy football, you're more than welcome to let me know. But anyway, so it talks about coaching is important in athletics, but for some reason that barely extends into the workplace. And I think what happens, Ed, this is just me. I think it doesn't extend to the workplace enough because we get so tunnel visioned, we get so focused on just our area or just getting the task done that we don't think about how are we helping others around us, because maybe some people get professionally jealous or something. They don't want
That's
people
what
to know all their information.
that's what I think it is.
Do you think so?
I think there's a lot to that. I think it happens to us. I think it happens to us too. And even in
Yeah.
our career, I've seen it. I do. I think that you don't want to give out too much information because, I mean, knowledge is power, right? And
Yeah.
so you don't want to develop that guy too much because maybe the weakness you help develop is his only weakness that makes him not stand out above you. And the next thing you know, like you've helped this guy,
Mm-hmm.
and now he's zooming past you and climbing the ladder. So I think that that's one of the challenges is that people don't, they're afraid to help somebody succeed and have more success than them.
Yeah. And so, and this is where I think it's a little bit different though for us, Ed. In the services, we don't have to worry about somebody taking our job from us, right? Like in a civilian world, from what I gather, because I've never been a civilian, so maybe somebody wants to reach out to us and let us know how true it is. Somebody could prove that they're better than you, and then all of a sudden, hey, I'm sorry, we don't need you anymore. We're going to use this guy over here because he's showing better performance than you. I could see that. We're in our world, it's like you're locked in. Like you're in that spot. It's you literally have to do something heinous to kind of. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but people can't take your job from you.
They can't take the overall job, but they could take your position from you.
It just depends.
Because
how
when we were at the academy, I mean, it would have been your failure still though. So because at the academy, it's not like the new hotshot facilitator is going to come in and they're going to say, okay, well, you're done because he's here. But if you do something stupid, then it could be you're going back to the unit because X, Y, Z, and we're going to replace you. So, but I do think that there's some opportunities that you could. I mean, my shop foreman when I was in a motor pool performed poorly, and then they put me in charge of him, and I don't do maintenance. But they made me the shop foreman, but he's still in the Army. He's just not the shop foreman anymore.
But he's giving away his, like, it was his to give
poor
away.
Performance. Poor performance.
Yeah. So, and that's what I'm saying. Yeah. And it's not like if I'm not performing, at least if I'm performing, it's different. And that's why I think it's different for us to be able to do the coaching, mentoring, and training of others versus maybe the way some people on the outside see it. However, I mean, there are organizations, they're going to that format of we need you to improve others so we can promote you type of thing. You know what I mean? Like, so somebody can take your job. And that's, I think, who we're speaking to. But I mean, it could be in anything, Ed. Like coaching could be in anything. So, well, let's jump into the first one. You want to hit off on the first one?
Well, that's fantastic, Brian, because I had the most notes on the first one.
We're going to get to 12 and be like, I didn't do any notes.
Give employees regular, frequent feedback. Employees crave constructive feedback from their managers, but don't always get it. Your employees want to know how their performance is viewed, what they're doing well, and what they need to improve. And here is the warning, Brian. So here's the warning, right? So I did some research. Said, well, what's the difference between feedback and criticism? And what I got is from a magazine, Forbes magazine article called 5 Essential Differences Between Criticism and Feedback. And it's by a guy named Jim Ludima and Amber Johnson. And it says, criticism focuses almost entirely on the problem. It points out the problem, often many times without providing or suggesting a practical, workable solution. Feedback focuses on recognizing the problem and then working with the recipient to come up with ways to resolve issues, correct problems, and move forward. And then it offers 5 little quick points. Criticism is focused on what we don't want. Feedback is focused on what we want. Criticism is focused on the past. Feedback is focused on the future. Criticism is focused on weakness. Feedback helps to build up strengths. Criticism deflates. Feedback
Mm-hmm.
inspires. And criticism says you are the problem. And feedback says we can make this better. And so I thought those 5 points were really good enforcement to what we are going over
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
About to make sure, because we got to understand we're saying feedback. And I think number 2 is also about feedback. So you got to understand the line between criticism and feedback is super important, Brian.
Oh yeah. No, you know what? That's a really good way of pointing out, like how you were saying, like focus on the future, not focus on the past, all that stuff. And when we get criticized, we often go into a defensive mode, right?
Absolutely.
And when you notice feedback, it's a different feeling, right? Who used to be great at giving us feedback? The Bearded Ninja.
The Bearded
Right?
Ninja.
Like it turned more into like a brainstorming session of how we can become better, instead of I'm defending myself against what he's saying. We never had to do that. And that's exactly, yeah. Man, you hit the nail on the head. I don't know if I can,
well,
add to that, elaborate.
I think with the Bearded Ninja too, it's part of what he did for us when we were learning to be facilitators. He didn't say, "Hey, you're trash at this. You did terrible at this." He said, "Hey, you said this thing, right? But what's another way you think you could reach a soldier?"
Yes.
And you'd say, "Oh, this. He goes, and then what do you think the result would be for that? And he makes you start thinking steps ahead. And so then he's building your confidence. I'm stealing all the thunder for these 12 things, but he's building you up, right?
Yes.
But is he really giving you the answers to the test? No, he's making you come up with the answers by asking you good questions. And I think that goes back to his knowledge of like the what's the Bloom's taxonomy. I think that's why he loved that. He loved that thing because I think he was very good at asking questions to drive you to where he was steering the boat, but you were moving the boat. Like you were figuring out where to go, but you were the engine behind it. He knew where he wanted you to be, Yeah. So I think that's
how
important.
Often you can think back to those situations that we reached the highest level of Bloom's taxonomy of create.
Yeah.
Because we didn't realize, like, we're being guided through, and that's the whole point. Like if listeners really want to look up Bloom's taxonomy and then look at what it means to hit those levels within it, and it's phenomenal. You don't even realize you're doing stuff like that. But the feedback, what you just said there, he was guiding questions, and those questions were talking about the future. Because when you say things like, how could you say that in the future like this or that? And it's not about, well, you did this wrong. You did this wrong. You did this wrong. Because instantly I think of somebody else that you worked with that you often got annoyed with. That's what I often felt like was the guy, like when, well, not for me because he wouldn't talk to me like that, but because then I'd be like, listen, you're gonna catch these hands for free if you don't watch out now. But that's awesome, man. I'm gonna move on to number 2 then, because I think we hit that just right.
Yeah, and I think it feeds to number 2.
Oh, big time. Create a culture of team feedback. Contrary to popular belief, feedback shouldn't just come from the manager. Employees should be encouraged to provide feedback to each other and to you, their manager. Strive to build a culture where 360 feedback is the norm. And I'm going to hit upon that in just a second.
All right.
This creates an ongoing dialogue that gives employees at all levels of the organization an opportunity to be heard. So when I think about this, Ed, what I think about is experiences and people's experiences in life and how they can do things. I want to say, who was it? No, I'm not going to bring that one up. But 360 feedback. We talk about 360 feedback. We do those things. Actually, I just got an email to do one for somebody I hadn't seen in a while. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll do this. I hadn't done it yet. I'm going to.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. But if people within an organization feel as if it's okay to give feedback to help somebody improve, I'm telling you, like that's a different mindset of an organization. That's no longer a me organization. That's an us organization. And that's the type of place you want to be at. You want to be a part of an us organization, a group of people that, hey man, I noticed this was going on. Maybe in the future, if you did this, what do you think would happen? Those
Yeah.
types of statements, those are that's going to help build a team. And when people feel like they can freely say things like that, there's a lot of trust. And building trust is, I mean, that's a huge thing in the Army in general. I mean, I could go into what we call mission command, and we could go into the different parts of mission command. And one of those key factors in there is building trust. Like, how do you build trust? Well, it takes time.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, creating that culture of feedback, that's going to build trust. Your thoughts, man?
Yeah. So first of all, building trust is important. And I think, so for me, I got very lucky. So my current OIC, she was planning the last big exercise. And so I work alongside that planner. And then we knew my captain was leaving. So we talked about having her come up and work with us, because through the course of planning that exercise, that trust was built between her and I. I knew who she was. I knew how she could execute. So then when she comes up and she takes the seat beside me as the OIC, I think it really strengthened our team, because we had worked together for over a year already. So I think it strengthened that bond. And then now this next major exercise that I'm working on, where the units come over and they train, the guy that's my sidekick, my lead planner, he got here and he went on one of the trips with me when I still had her as the planner. So he was we call it right seat right. She was training him, I was training him, and now he's the lead guy. So I have a trust in what he says, and it makes your team more valuable. And I've been blessed to have the same team for these last two big exercises here in Europe. Really adds to the value of that trust. And they'll tell me, I asked them, hey, how'd you think the meeting went? And they'll say, well, I think you weren't involved enough, or maybe you could have interjected here and here, or maybe this other captain, because we usually go to dinner all together. Maybe this other captain wasn't involved enough, and they'll say it in front of the team. And that's that culture of feedback that that team has planning these major events. There's about 5 or 6 of us that work together over a period of a year planning this thing, and without that feedback and that team cohesion, that team culture, or as you said, that mindset, I don't think that it would be as successful. So I think it's super important, Brian. I'm sorry, I went on a
Oh yeah. No. That sounds great. It's funny. I guess you could say, as I've aged or over the years, and you know what I'm talking about, because you've aged much more.
See, I complimented you. You insulted me. This team's culture right now.
This is a horrible culture.
Yeah.
No. So over the years, though, Ed, I don't know. It's like I enjoy feedback now. Like, I not just enjoy it, but like I feel comfortable with it. Like before, I maybe it was just my ego was getting in the way, and I think that plays a huge role in it. Learning how to accept feedback is ego. Ego will destroy your ability to accept feedback. Actually, Bitter Ninja turned me on to a book called "Ego is the Enemy." It's a real good one. So if anybody wants to check that one out. What I was getting at is, okay, so right now we are engulfed in COA development, or course of action development, for the military decision-making process in my classroom. And we're built up into different teams and stuff like that. And one guy named Ken, that's actually his name, he says, hey, I have a recommendation. If we do this, what do you think this would work? And I was like, man, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And he has experience doing this already. So it's like, why not take his experience and use it, instead of that mindset of, no, my way's the highway, I only have the right answers. You know what I mean? And so I don't know, I'm starting to feel like feedback, I enjoy it more and I respect it more than when I was younger and my ego was in the way.
Yeah. And I'm gonna tell you, I still have. So you evaluate people. We evaluate people constantly. It's what we do. It's human nature, right? We're always evaluating people we work with, ourselves. We should be evaluating ourselves, but some people maybe don't. If I'm working with someone and they provide a feedback, right, and it's not positive, I'm okay with that, but I do tend to take it a little bit differently when it's like you don't know your job and then you're open to give feedback, but you don't want to take feedback. And that's where I have to
Mm-hmm.
remind myself to check your ego, listen what they're saying because they may be saying something valid,
Mm-hmm.
and then use the fix yourself. I can't fix that they don't want to accept criticism or feedback. Or not criticism. Not criticism. I don't that they don't
Yes.
want to accept feedback, but that's when I struggle. I really struggle with my ego when it's a less than standard performer. I guess is a good way to put it. If they don't meet the standard themselves, but then they're going to provide negative feedback to me. I'm just kind of like, but who are you to, So I have to remind
Yes.
myself. It is a weakness I have. I know this, and that's part of me doing feedback on myself and watching myself. But yeah, so that's one of the struggles with the ego, Brian.
Absolutely. You know, it's funny. You what you just talked about is knowing your limit. So let's
Yes.
move into number 3 because we're going to talk about limits.
Yes, I also have notes here, Brian. Push
It's almost like
employees.
you knew. It's almost like you knew you were going to do the odd numbers. I was going to do the even numbers here. I don't know.
It's weird, right? You always give me odd, and then you make these comments and you're mean to me. And anyway, always, not a thing. Push employees to their attainable limits. While you don't want to overwhelm employees, motivating your team to get out of their comfort zone can help them grow and perform at the highest potential. Employees who demonstrate at their highest potential. Employees who demonstrate a lack of interest in their work are much more likely to become disengaged. In many cases, they need to be challenged and provide regular feedback, recognition to grow and improve. Identify the
Mm-hmm.
employee's experience and skill set and have them take on new tasks or assignments that help them expand. Be available and willing to help when questions arise. So this is good. So one of the things I was thinking about when I read this, Brian, is you can't be afraid to take somebody out of their comfort zone for the sake of I know. So if I know Schmugatelli is really good at this thing, don't be afraid to give Charisse that task and let her do it and let her increase her knowledge. I know Schmugatelli is going to give me a plus performance. Charisse might give me a B, but if I don't and I rely on Schmugatelli, I'm going to burn him out, right? I'm going to burn him out, and I'm not developing Charisse. So the gap is just going to widen in their knowledge in that particular area. So I'm hurting in the long run. I'm hurting my own organization. I'm hurting the development of Charisse, and I'm hurting Schmugatelli. So everybody is losing in this scenario. So you have to be willing to push that other person out. Get them out of their comfort zone. Um, and that's how you develop your future leaders. To help you, because that being disengaged, once they're disengaged, it's hard to reel them back in. That's when you end up with people who are unhappy working in an organization or being in an organization. And then now you got people who are looking for ways to get out of the organization, and move on because they're not engaged. It's boring and they want more. So challenge them, challenge your people, challenge them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, and that's that. So John Bonilla, buddy of mine, he says being comfortable in the uncomfortable, it's the best way to kind of grow. What you were talking about there too, that whole with the disengage of people who don't get to do stuff. That's one of those things. And I'm going to speak from the aviation maintainer side of things. Sometimes you'll have guys that are really good at troubleshooting things and troubleshooting problems on an aircraft, for instance. Those are the guys, what you just said, get burnt out because that's all they do. They're always the one who's solving the problems. And then you'll have the Smuckatellis over there or Charisses over there that are not getting experience on
Not getting
how to do
developed.
that. So you're instead of creating that even playing field, you're getting people up here for one thing, and then the rest of them are all down here. And it's it's not fair, right? But two, what happens when this guy gets out of the Army? He says, no, now this is your level. You can't have that.
What if he takes leave?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I noticed, like the diversification, like using other individuals and diversifying that that field of play. Like when we create and I know it's totally, you create a fantasy football team, right? No, I'm dead serious. Somebody's gonna have a bye week. How do you fill that person's position, right? Like, I mean, when you think about it, you look at the stats, you look at what they're capable of, what they're projected to be able to do. So you're trying to fill that position. It's this now. Obviously, we're not developing those teams ourselves. We just get players. But I'm thinking about it in that manner, like in your organization, what happens, like what you said, when that guy goes on leave, or that guy or girl, they leave the organization. How are you filling that spot?
Mm-hmm.
And it comes with training everyone to kind of get. Now, you're not always going to have everyone even keel. There's going to always be some type of offset. But it's the idea of you're attempting to do so, and if you attempt to do so, you're going to get that within the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that this is a really good point. I think this is just, in general, leadership. This is just, to me, a very good, valuable point. But you have to continue to push people and challenge them. But, and that the wearing out the one guy, and I was very guilty of this early on. Like you do get where your other soldiers are disengaged, but you got your go-to soldiers that you're working and they're doing and performing, and then now they're burnt out. But you got these other soldiers, and then they're seeing the soldier in the smoke break area for 30 minutes while they're working. They see that stuff.
Yep.
So yeah,
yes,
damaging to the culture of your organization to ride the one that can get it done, rather than challenge the one who can get it done, but they just don't know they can yet.
Yep, that's a key. It's a key indicator of good force management and talent management within an organization. So let's move on. Let's move on to number 4, which is be open to employee ideas. Whew, that one will get you. That'll hook you up real well. All right, employee listening is an essential part of coaching. It opens you to different concepts you hadn't previously thought of, and it makes employees feel heard. When they feel their opinion is respected and valued, they're far more likely to engage and push harder. Build in opportunities to capture employee voice through one-on-one feedback and employee surveys. Listening to different perspectives from a variety of venues can help you create a more complete picture of the employee experience. So we talk about experiential learning often in here, right? So we've brought it up multiple times throughout the years, and it's something that you and I grasped, and I guarantee you probably use it where you're at, and I know I use it where I'm at, and throughout so far since we learned it back in when did we start that? I think 2018 is when we started that, or I think it was 2017 into 18, yeah. But I think about that, and I'm like, why wouldn't you use the experiences and their understanding of others? Like, why not? There's some people that say, hey, the wheel's already been created. No need to try to break it and recreate a new one. No, I get you. But sometimes maybe there are elements of the wheel that need to be updated. Let's take cycling. Let's take cycling, for instance, Ed. Bicycles have been around for many, many years, and you and I, we both ride, so we may understand. Would you rather ride one of those big, giant wheeled ones with a little wheel on the back, the old school ones, or your fancy road bike? Which would you rather ride?
Ooh, I mean, it's a tough call, Brian, because I think the old school one would be fun, but no, you definitely would prefer your modern road bike just for the seat and what the seat's gonna feel like. But yeah, it's a little different. I do want to ride one of those other ones.
It would be cool. But now I'm going to put you in a different situation. I just asked which one you ride. Which one would you run a ride in a road race that you feel like you have to win?
Oh, absolutely. My road bike.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Bikes have been around in a while, but they've been updated and they've been built to become better and better and better. Whether it be the spokes and how they are built within the wheel, whether it be the frame, the seat, the handlebars, the changing of gears, the gears themselves, the braking system, whether it be disc or just the friction pads. But that's what I'm getting at. It's like they got to that certain point with those particular tools of to improve upon. So why would somebody sit there and not listen to possible better ideas, better concepts than what they're already doing from a junior within an organization? I'm going to tell you right now, Ed, if I have a subordinate that comes up to me and say, "Hey, I have an idea," I'm going to listen to them. I'm going to think about it. I want to think it through. I'm going to war game that through. Well, maybe that would work, and then I'm going to also think about the roadblocks I may have. Then I'll ask him, if we had this roadblock and this roadblock, how would you think we would go about it? So I'm going to help them. So what did I just do there? One, I accepted their ideas. Two, we did some brainstorming to figure out what's going on. And three, I'm coaching them through my questioning of how they would think about getting through those roadblocks. So we have multiple formats there. Your thoughts on that whole part of it?
No, I think you hit on something that was key, and this is one of the notes that I made is, it's been a long time since I worked in a warehouse, so supply support activity. I haven't worked in a warehouse in many, many years. So I'm very detached from the operations in a warehouse. So the junior soldier or they're there day to day. Maybe I make a decision that is going to not help the organization, but if they're willing to share their ideas, they can say, well, you got to think of it like this. And at the same time, we're doing something that we're going to talk about here in a minute, learning from, we're encouraging employees to learn from others, but we're also learning from our employees because we've been away a while. Like for you, it's been years since you probably turned a wrench regularly, right? So maybe you're not as in tune with that operation as you were when you were a young staff sergeant, and listening to employees would kind of give you, that other perspective. And I think that's really what's key here, Brian.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, I like what you brought up there. You said that, how long it's been since you worked on aircraft. It's been 9 years. 9 years, right?
Way detached.
So I am completely, just like you, I'm completely detached. I don't know. One, the aircraft has changed. It's gone through a whole new model that I'm familiar with. Two, bro, in my last organization that I just left, I'm out on the hangar floor and I'm watching these kids do the paperwork. It is completely different than what I used to do.
Yeah.
Right. I started, brother, where I had like a card that went in a green book and you had to pencil in
I remember
stuff.
I mean,
yeah.
Oh, you're old.
Yeah. Whatever. But that's what I'm saying. Like just that portion of it. And then, obviously we moved on to computerized logbooks, things like that. But the system that they're using is completely different. I got a good example for you. GSS Army, that type of thing, right?
Yeah.
Understanding the supply system, the way the supply system is now compared to when you first come in, it's a completely different. I mean, you're talking millennials ahead of what we had in the beginning, right?
Yeah. Software changes. We've had hardware changes in the system that I knew when I came in. Like, satellites.
But this is the point, though. It's the idea to me is how you relate. How can I relate what I know and what I was used to what is now? And that's just the understanding, open to employee ideas, man, and how they can help.
Absolutely.
All right. So what do we got next?
So the next thing kind of plays a little bit into that. We're going to talk about encouraging employees to learn from others. No two employees are exactly alike. They come from different backgrounds and have varying personality strengths and weaknesses. Simply connecting employees with their peers opens up new possibilities and creates a more connected workplace. Encourage employees to interact frequently so they teach each other new skills or approaches. Welcoming different perspectives and asking for all employees to contribute will help you foster a more diverse and inclusive culture at work. And I raised my tone just a touch there because I highlighted that I think it's really important. But encouraging your employees got to be willing to be lifelong learners too. They can't be like, well, that's enough, And if anything, I want my employees to be hungry to learn my job. I want them to, and that's what we do
Mhm.
very good in the military. We make them want to learn what we do, and then we empower them to learn those things. Um, and then that in turn builds on the culture, and now that's coaching, and you're engaging them, and you're keeping them, interested and wanting to learn more. Uh, and then to learn from their peers. This is one I think again, Brian, ego. Uh,
Mm.
you have to be willing to learn from your peer, and you should want your employees to do the same. And sometimes that does involve, checking your ego, putting it away, and going, okay, I
Mhm.
do not know how to do this. He does. I'm going to learn from my peer, my battle buddy, how to execute this task. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No.
Um, you
No.
know what I mean? Like, yeah. So this week I was on the road, and soldier calls me and they're like, "Well, I'm trying to do my travel. How do you do blah 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 blah?" And so I walked her through it, got her to do it. And then another person calls me, and honestly, I was on the road getting ready to go into a meeting. I really didn't have time at that moment. So what I did is I told him, I said, "Hey, I just worked through this with Sergeant such and such. Give her a call, and she'll walk you through." So now he's got to learn from one of his peers. Nothing wrong with that. And then all I
Mhm.
did as the senior is follow back up after I came out my meeting. I called back and said, "Hey, did you get it all figured out?" "Roger, son, we're good. I'm good to go." Okay. So that's engaging, that's building them, that's coaching, and that's letting him know it's okay to ask for help from your peer. So, and
Yeah.
then it also takes stuff off your plate as a senior. If they're learning from each other, then they're not asking you these 10 level or their level of question. They're not asking you when you're at this level of leadership right now, so it
Mhm.
helps to take some stuff off your plate a little bit too, Brian. So when you're a first
Yeah.
sergeant, you were the first sergeant, you don't necessarily, I mean, you're going to do it, you're going to answer the question, but soldiers asking you a question about how to perform physical readiness training, they could be asking that at a lower level than the first sergeant. We know you
Mm.
know the answer, but what about that sergeant first class? He knows the answer too. What about that staff sergeant? He knows the answer too. And you're trying to encourage them to start. I mean, their peer who went to the basic leader course already knows the answer as well. And that's what you want, to take
Yes.
some of those little ankle biter questions off your plate at a senior level so that you can do your thing as well.
Absolutely. And I really can't like broaden that any further than what you said. But I think the two things that stuck out to me of what you said, Ed, I literally had those in my mind as you were reading it, was the ego thing, because
Yep.
that's huge. Learning to kind of let that go and just, part of it. And then using, you said you were talking about, you taught somebody how to do this. And then when somebody else called you to ask the same question, you literally just solidified the training that you did with that person. So you did training with this one individual, then this other individual came along. What that person you trained did, you basically helped solidify their ability to train others on something
Hmm.
that you train them on, which in turn gives them that experience and that knowledge and understanding that just backs things up of what
Yep.
you already did. So it's like, yeah, man, yeah, that's all day long.
Hmm.
That's stuff. If organizations can do things like that, where it's like, I trained you, now I need you to train them. Train the
Yeah.
trainer. That's what it's
Train the
called. It's called
trainer.
train the trainer. So let's move on then. Listen, I like this one. I think this one, more people need to stop with the ego and do this, because that's this one right here. This is ego. This is all day long. Ask employees for opinions. Employees aren't the only ones who can learn from each other. You can too. Keep an open mind during conversations and frequently source new ideas or tactics from them. Collecting regular feedback from your employees shows you're willing to listen and always looking to improve. Simply asking for feedback creates an open dialogue and gives employees a voice. This can make the workplace feel more like a democracy instead of a dictatorship.
Mm.
Make sure you take notes and follow up once you've heard from your team. Let me tell you something, man. Like that is definitely one of those things that I learned to utilize really quick with my platoon sergeant when I was the first sergeant, is to ask their opinion. Hey guys, this is what I'm thinking. How do you think that will go over within the organization? You're going to have the ones that it's going to happen, right? I'm looking for the feedback that's kind of almost like rejecting what's being said, so I can continue to learn from that and say, why? Why do you think that's rejected? How can you help me make it an accepted idea, or to get the team aboard on what we're trying to do here? Because those are the ones who are going to create a better team for you. The ones who are like, oh yeah, the yes men type attitude,
Yeah.
those ones are going to hurt you more than anything, because they're saying yes, and at the same time they may also be the same person that's going back and telling individuals, hey, first ones, we got to do this now. They're not a part of the ownership, right? They're not
Yeah.
part of being a part of it. Getting those opinions, to me, Ed, that builds upon the organization in a manner that that basically allows you to think outside of where you're at. That's where
Yeah.
you get.
Yeah.
So, what are you thinking?
Yeah, no, so excellent points, Brian, all the way across. I think that the only real thing I wanted to add to it is to me, there's two different types of people too. So you say, hey, I asked my platoon sergeants, like, what are you guys thinking? You're going to have the guy that's going to say, that's not going to work. And the conversation ends. Not, that's not going to work. Here's why, but here's how I think it could work. That's what we want. What we're going to get is, that's not going to work. And then you're going to get your yes man, go along to get along. And he may actually have a great idea and be like, that would be so much easier if we did it this way, but you're the guy in charge, so I'm just going to go along to get along. And both of those are bad for the culture within our organization.
Absolutely.
And you need to identify them and then find a way to teach, coach, mentor, and engage them to get them, kind of change up their thought process a little bit. Let them see that
I think
they're part of the organization, and their opinion matters. It's not just go along to get along. You know what I mean? And I know you are famous for, don't come to me with a problem without a solution. That you are famous for that. So come with some, and my solution could be far fetched, but that's where the conversation and the feedback comes in. So that's all I want.
Because we can work through those problems. That's the thing. So absolutely, man. All right. So what do we got next? We're gonna do what?
I like this one. This is build confidence, and I'm gonna just give you the Cliff Notes version here, Brian. Really, what it's saying is you build confidence, right? Confident employees are more likely to achieve their goals than those who feel unsupported, misguided. And all this talks about is recognize a good job publicly if possible. And what you're doing is when you and don't be, it can't be, hey, Brian, good job. With what? Let them know what they did. Let them know why it was a good job. I mean, if you can, let them know big picture, like what the end result was. I worked with this Operation Allied Refuge, and at the end of one of our 12-hour shifts, we had built X amount of tents, and we had the team in a group, and there was somebody else who was in charge at the time. But right before we released them, he goes around, he's like, "Hey, you got anything, Master Sergeant?" And I said, "Hey, I just want you to know that these people appreciate what you did. You all worked really hard today, and you did a great job." And that just makes them feel better about themselves, right? It makes them feel confident. That gives them a sense of belief in what they're out there supporting. And I think that's important for us to do. But it can't be, like I said, it can't be half-hearted. Hey, good job. At what? What did I do a good job at? Doing my job? No, what exactly? Lay out the specifics. So that's how you build confidence, Brian.
Absolutely. And just building confidence in others, if you're not trying to do that, you're literally deteriorating your organization from the inside out. You are, because if they're not confident in what's going on, they're going to come to you all the time, because they need reassurance that what they're doing is the right thing, and it's going to waste a ton of your time, other people's time. It just turns into a snowball effect of, there's no confidence in the organization. We can't do our own thing. And then it turns into employee overturn. No joke. Even in the Army, people don't re-enlist anymore because they feel like they can't do anything good. You mentioned there about recognizing employees. So I want to say it was last week or week before, we were doing ACFT, Army Combat Fitness Test familiarization. And it's really just where you walk through the different stations, and they just want to make sure everyone understands what's required of it. I've done multiple ones. I knew what was required. We get to the deadlift. And the deadlift event, I love it. I love the idea of it. However, I'm also worried about the safety factor in it. Like there are safety factors where somebody may think they can just go out there and bro lift it and just pick it up and they can get hurt really bad, right? Just as well as I do.
100%.
Deadlift can be a dangerous,
Mhm.
dangerous movement if you don't have technique and the strength to go with a technique once you build the technique. But it all starts with technique. So here we are. We're out there, and the instructor is doing a great job at training it. He really did. He did a great job at everything. And then I happen to bring up, hey, I know a technique that will help you from, like when you're holding it, keeping your hands from shifting back and forth. And it's just slightly offsetting your hands a little bit, right? Just a little bit. They don't have to be straight across from each other. They can, one arm's, literally an inch difference, right? And it won't shift as much. So now that technique will keep it from rolling on you. And next thing you know, it falling down, flipping forward, and you getting hurt. It was cool, right? So I move on to the next station, but I'm in earshot of that particular station. And when I'm in the next station, and he literally turns around, he's briefing it. He briefs what I just told him. And then he turns around, and he gives me credit for it. And he points me out. And I was like, man, that's pretty cool. I mean, he could have just said that next group didn't know he learned that from me, but he did it. This particular instructor said, yes, Master such over there. They just said this. I think that's a great idea. Something I never knew before that now I'm going to use as my technique. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And then I heard him later on telling it to the vice director of our department. I'm like, man, that's like that felt good. Do I want that? I don't need that, like that confidence builder. However, knowing that there are seniors out there that still want to build people up and create that confidence, that feels good, Ed. So that's all I have on that part.
All right. What's next?
Don't do employees work for them. That just the title alone is enough. Don't do their work for them, because next thing you know, you're doing everyone's work, and now it's a control problem. But let's see what it has to say about it. When you notice an assignment is proceeding slowly or heading in the wrong direction, you might be tempted to take it into your own hands and simply complete it yourself. This might be beneficial in the short term, but employees need to learn through trial and error. Instead of taking the task off their hands, teach them how to handle the situation by offering guidance. Ask leading questions. So those questions are going to lead them through, but they're not doing it for them. And help them navigate their way through the muck. Remember, a good coach gives their team a pathway to success. Brother, that right there, we could have just talked about that and only that for this entire show.
Yeah.
Not doing people's work for them, leading them through questions of, so if you go here, what do you think is going to happen next? And it allows them to be critical and creative thinking. Critical, creative thinking to work through problem solving. To me, I had that problem with that. I used to have a problem with this.
Me too.
Oh, I don't like you to get out of my way.
Yeah.
Get out of my way. Let me do it. Right. And when you do that, get out of my way. How are they learning? They weren't learning because they're watching me.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, so in today's society, if I'm not physically engulfed in that and I'm pushed to the side, the very next thing, this is what happens. Bing. That's it. Right. They're focused on this here.
Yeah.
And not, and those of you listening, I'm talking about a phone. Their cell phones with them, so they'll whip out their cell phone, and now they're checking Facebook, Instagram, their Snapchat, whatever. They're engaged somewhere else. They're not engaged in the task that I'm doing in front of them because I decided to do it for them.
Yep.
Now, so your thoughts, man?
Yeah, no, this is something I struggled with this early too, because it can be easier. It can be easier to just, I'll just do it myself. But that's not the answer, because you're not teaching them. They're not learning. They're not growing. They're not developing. So I think for me too, the other thing that came to mind, I like the last sentence, Brian. A good coach gives their team a pathway to success, right? Legendary Laker coach Pat Riley, did play basketball, but not when he was a coach. But he had the game plan. He had that Showtime fast break style basketball plan. And then the talent of a Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and a James Worthy. I'm old people. These are guys from the 80s. But the talent of those guys partnered with that, with his philosophy on how to play offensive-minded basketball, and they win 2 championships, right? Chicago Bulls, the famous triangle offense. Same thing. Phil Jackson. He had the plan, and actually it wasn't him. It was Tex Schramm, I think the guy's name. So the coach has the plan. They have the talent. We come together and we're successful. And I think that's what that says. I love that last sentence. I'm not using that dude up in New England's name, though.
Which one? Because there's multiple. They're all awesome.
The one that hasn't won since he lost Tom.
Oh, stop. Bill Belichick is awesome. He knows what he's doing. I'm watching.
He cut Cam.
We'll see what happens. I'm telling you. So you know what? We're not going to get into that debate. Right. You're a fan of a team that doesn't even have a name. So let's go.
Fair.
What's the next one, brother?
Tolerate and support failure, Brian. So yeah, this is a thing. This is a tough one because we've talked about a few times on this show about, you got to challenge that other person. Even though Schmugatelli is great, you got to challenge Charisse. But that plays here. You have to tolerate and support that failure. All right. So sometimes things aren't going to go according to plan. Mistakes will be made and deals will fall through. It's just part of work. But how you respond is what matters. Mm-hmm. Accepting failure and moving to the next task can create a lower standard for performance expectations. But you don't want to crush employee spirits for their mistake. Ask your employees to explain what went wrong and how they could perform better, encouraging them to consider what opportunities exist and how they might improve in the future, remain positive and solution-oriented. So you basically are saying, hey, let's do an AAR after action review. But for me, this is one of those things where, I used to stress this with my young new leaders is, you're sitting around and there's a meeting and you've been sitting here for hours. It's now 1900. Your platoon sergeant, or I am in a meeting and we still haven't come back. Like, don't be afraid to say, you know what, guys, this is what we're going to do. Everybody make sure you answer your phone. You can go home. I'll call you if anything comes out of the meeting important. Right? Boom. So now soldiers go home. I'm taking a risk, but I'm willing to tolerate and support that failure as the platoon sergeant, because as long as I can get to him and say, hey, these are the things we need the soldiers to know, and he can get the information to them, okay, that's a good thing. But you have to be willing to step out and take a little risk, and be willing to accept the consequences of that risk, whatever it is. But then for me as the senior, I need to understand, okay, that's good. He took some initiative. He got the soldiers out of here rather than sitting on, crates in the motor pool waiting on me. He took some initiative. So I can understand that. And you have to be willing to deal with the fallout from that. No, Bearded Ninja again, famous. Nobody's shooting at us. You releasing the soldiers while I'm in a meeting is not going to destroy the organization. No.
Yes.
Our adversaries are not winning the war because you did that. So let's relax as seniors and be like, okay, good for you for taking the initiative. Now let's figure out, Schmugatelli didn't answer his phone. How can we fix these things and then move forward?
Yes.
So
yeah, I think so, Ed. I really believe this tolerate and support failure comes with experience, maturity, and just age in general, like understanding, like actually thinking back to, like, I think back at the mistakes I made as a junior and how I was treated and how I wish I was not treated like, and how I wish I was treated like. Those are the types of, and that's what helps keep my mind frame in that idea of, all right, so tolerate that. Now, this is the way I see it. The first time you make an error or mistake, that's a training opportunity.
Yep.
All right. The second time you do that, to me, if it's the same one, that's a discipline problem. If it's the third time and if it's the same thing, I think it's a competence issue. Right. So and you can work your way through all three. The competence one is the hardest one to fix. That is complete, like that one. No, I have a hard time. That you can help somebody with a confidence problem, but when it comes to training and discipline, you can work that. And to be able to tolerate, and support failures. What you said it right off the bat is, hey, we're doing an AAR. And we've talked about AARs in previous episodes. And AAR is about feedback. It is about coaching them through to a solution, not to, well, you did this wrong, fix it, and then walk away.
Yeah.
Well, how do I know how to fix it? What am I supposed to be doing to fix this? I don't even know where to go with this. I was sitting in a classroom about three days ago, and I was supposed to be figuring something out of this scenario we were giving. And personally, I had no idea what I was doing. I was confused, and I this is one of those times where I don't like to speak up and say, "Hey, I don't know what I'm doing," but I had to. And I said it. I said it in front of everybody. I said, "Hey, listen, I need somebody's help here. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what this means." And my instructor was like, "Hey, come here. I'm gonna help you." And he pulled me aside and he's like, "Hey, this is what you're doing. This is what you're looking for. So if you're looking for this, where would you go to find this?" "Oh, I'd probably go here and do this." "Exactly." He's like, "And then you take this and you do this." And so he led me through it. And I was like, and that's why I said earlier to you, I was like, man, I am very fortunate to have the two instructors I have. They're very, very good about teaching us and running us through that gamut instead of allowing their ego to get in the way.
Yeah.
Being dismissive, because that will get you too. When somebody's being dismissive, you know what? Just get out of here. I don't need you to do this. I'll get somebody else to do it. They can do it better. Man, you will destroy a team.
Yeah.
You're going to create animosity. You're going to create a lack of confidence. And then the trust factor is totally going to be thrown out the window from all that.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah, man. Hey, great point, brother.
All right.
All right. So I think this next one kind of goes along with what we just previously did with number 3. I think it's almost, it feels like they're repeating itself now. But it says recognize employees often. I'll go through this. I don't think we're going to need to spend too much time on it because we kind of hit upon it. But mistakes happen, and so do successes. Oftentimes, managers get caught up in being a constructive coach instead of a celebratory one. Ooh, that's... When an employee succeeds or goes over the top, let them know that you noticed. Recognition can be as simple as a thank you note, a cup of their favorite coffee drink, or a shout out during the next team meeting. Little acknowledgments can go a long way towards securing buy-in and building a stronger team. That's self-explanatory. We've said this. Recognize in public, punish in private.
Yeah.
But what I have learned, Ed, I got this book. It's I don't have it in here. I don't know what to do with it. It's very much like the love languages book I've talked about before, the Gary Chapman book, but instead it's the five appreciations in the workplace, and it's knowing what they enjoy. Like, are they somebody who likes the gifts, they like the awards, or somebody who likes the praise, or just the simple thank you because they don't want to be praised in public, type of thing. So just noticing those things, to me, is what helps the team in this coaching manner.
Yeah, no, that's excellent point, Brian. The only thing I'm really have to add to that is the one thing is, you're there to share in their joy or success, not take credit for it. And sometimes people who are in positions of power or in charge, sometimes they can get the credit and they don't say, you know what, it wasn't me. That was Schmugatelli's idea. He actually came up with that plan, and then let him get the credit. You don't need it. But so don't share. Schmugatelli did a great thing. He's excellent. This is one of my best employees. He came up with that plan. Just, but don't take credit for it. So that was the only thing I had to add to that one, Brian.
It's funny. In front of bosses, that's probably like one of the best way to get buy-in from your team and building a team's trust is when you do that. Like, just like, hey, sir. Yeah, I couldn't take credit for this. It's such and such over here. They're a genius. They're the one that came up with this. They guided me through this. They're the one who deserve all the praise. You want to see a Joe fall in line behind you? That is the fastest way. Like, I'm telling you, I bought cups of coffee before. It doesn't matter. You will buy their buy-in by giving them a credit in front of someone.
All the leadership capital you want.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's this next one, brother?
So this one is make a goal roadmap. Brian, this is developmental counseling all over it. So basically what it's saying is you're going to sit down with your employee and you're going to talk to them about what their goals are and how to get there. You know, we have career maps in the military. We sit down with our subordinates and say, here's where you are. Here's where you need to be in the next 2 to 4 years. Now let's come up with a plan to get there. It's a back and forth discussion, because if you don't do that, if it's more you talking, here's what you need to do to get to that point, you lack the buy-in. But if you get them to walk into it and you set short-term goals so they can get easy wins along the route, right? I think I talked about it before. When you run, you say, well, I'm going to go out here and run, and I'm going to run 2 blocks. And I'm going to run 2 blocks in this time. And then you do it. And then you say, okay, now I'm going to do 2 more blocks and I'm going to beat that last time. And you're looking at your little, whatever watch, and you're going, okay, boom, boom, boom. But your overall goal is to run 4 miles and PR that 4-mile run. But you're doing it in increments. So win until you have your overall goal. Same thing with sitting down with your employee to develop this roadmap. Give them little short nugget wins, like little short period things that lead to the bigger success, that leads to that, that private making it to specialist. How do you get there? What are some things you got to do? And that's what this really, to me, as soon as I read it, I said, this is developmental counseling. That's all it is.
Yes,
and then
absolutely.
Also, when you develop it like that and you give them the short, you're developing an accountability, because then if they don't meet one of those small goals, it's not the end of the whole goal. It's just a delay, but you're giving them some accountability of, oh man, I didn't do what I needed to do. I need to pick it up. And that helps develop them, and you're coaching and you're mentoring them to replace you, which is a great thing.
No, absolutely. I mean, professional jealousy, that gets you nowhere. I would tell you. So if you let's just take organizations. Let's just think a couple fast food organizations. Let's just say Chick-fil-A. Let's try McDonald's or Burger King or something, right? When you walk into those places, you can tell there's a different atmosphere. You can tell there's something different about the place. You can tell by looking at the place. You can tell by the presentation of the food you receive. You can tell by, just in general, you can feel a difference, right? I can't, knock on wood, I don't think I've ever gone to a Chick-fil-A and been disappointed. I just don't think I have. I may have and just don't remember, because it would be far and few between. But I can tell you right now, like, I've almost crossed off a Burger King, and I don't eat out. I don't eat out fast food much. I very seldom do.
Sound like
right?
It.
No, we don't. But when I do, like, I pretty much have crossed off all Burger Kings, just because every time I have a horrible experience, and it comes down to the goals and roadmaps, right? So what does Chick-fil-A do different than Burger King? Chick-fil-A, they know their employees. This is not their final landing ground. This is not where they're going to work the rest of their life. They know that they have to achieve something higher. So they help them create goals, guide them through some type of performance process to get those kids to college, to get them in management positions, to get them to where they wanted to achieve more. They don't do that at Burger King. Yeah. They don't do that at McDonald's, really, right? That's very far and few between if they do. And if they do, then they must be some weird, just crazy off-brand, and they must be probably the best organization in the world. Instead, they just use their people and send them on. And that's why, like, you can tell it. You can tell a difference, man. You can tell a difference in the age of people that's employed there. I mean, it's a way different idea. And that's what you're doing. You're creating a roadmap for somebody. And if you do that, yeah, maybe you may want that person to stay in your organization forever, but maybe that's not the place for them. So why not create a roadmap to help them along? Like the Army, man.
Yeah.
Keep people in the Army forever is not the best idea for some people. Some people need to go on and do bigger and better things or do something different. This is a good experience to learn and to create. Like, I would definitely say, Ed, that for my first 6 years, I went from one thing to this other thing, and I was a completely different individual after 6 years. At 10 years, I was even way different. You know what I'm saying?
Oh
So like
yeah.
each time, I mean, just this whole building and the goals and all that. So yeah, man, I think creating that type of atmosphere, that right there is the best way to create coaching, a coaching mentality.
Yeah. No, I agree.
All right. We are at number 12, and we actually have gone over, but when have we not? Let's see here.
We try.
So here's the last one before we wrap up the show. Ask what you can do to help. Good coaches don't just throw their players into a competition and say, figure it out. I said this earlier, I think. They actively encourage their team and search for solutions to help athletes succeed. Let your employees know they can come to you with questions or concerns. Use one-on-ones to understand the challenges they are facing and build a plan together. You're there to help them, and they should feel comfortable asking for advice and or assistance. I love that. That one-on-ones, challenges, and knowing that they can come to you for challenges. Who was it, Ed? Was it Hal Moore that talks about when your soldiers stop coming to you?
Yeah.
Then you stop learning, or you stop being a leader and stuff. I think that's the same here. I think what Hal said is here. How can I help you? What can I do to help this situation? Where's your problems that can help coach you or help you guide you through? Those are the questions that you can ask, man. What you got?
So here's my key to this whole thing. So this one is another excellent example. Ask what you can do to help, but you need to be genuine in your desire to help. So oftentimes leaders will say, well, what can I do to help? But it's really just because that's the thing to say. Be there when somebody calls you and says, hey, I would like your help. Be genuine. It's a desire to help. Be there when they say that. Oh yeah, okay. We say it a lot. This is where I get this from, is a lot of times, you depart an organization and people will say, well, call me if you need anything. But do you mean that? What if I call you and I say, hey, I have to fly into that base, can I just crash at your house? It's only one day. I believe this has happened to you and I together. Actually, when we went to Fort Leonard Wood, we had a meal, right? Didn't call and say, hey, I need help. I need a meal. We had a meal, but it's just, be there and say, yes, that's no problem. Absolutely come. Don't be like, well, I got my wife. And so if you're going to make an offer to help, stand by that offer. That's kind of the bottom line.
Good old Joe Leone.
Yeah. Even though I still got to beat him in fantasy football as well.
Oh my.
70 points.
Whatever. 70 points. Yeah. So I want to show this thing. I have it on my board. I actually had this. You may remember. I had this. It was posted up on my desk. I keep it, and I keep posting it everywhere I go. To me, I think this falls into the coaching, mentor, and training. And then when we do the wrap up show, where we're basically where we're kind of like bringing it all together and kind of explain it, I think this plays a big part in this. So I'll show it up on the thing. So right there, it's team, right? Take responsibility, encourage others, ask for help or help others, and then master your job. I'll explain what that means when we get to that wrap up show, but I'm going to show this each one of these shows. And that way people can kind of see where we're going with this, because this will play a big part once you see where I'm going with it. Other than that, Ed, we learned how to coach today, or we actually learned some steps on how to be effective coaching. If there was somebody out there that needed coached through how they can contact us, find us, learn more about us, offer up advice, anything, because obviously we need to receive advice. Can you coach them through this?
I can, Brian. So you can reach out to us on our various forms of social media at 101 Influence on Facebook, Instagram. You can also find Brian and myself, Ed, on the Twitter. You can shoot us some messages, join the closed Facebook group, answer a couple of little simple questions, and then you'll be admitted, and then jump in and have fun. Jump into the deep end right away, ask a question, make a comment, make a suggestion. We welcome all of that. And then also you can check out the Instinctive Influencers on YouTube. You can subscribe, give a big thumbs up, and then you can leave a comment. You can, comment on, you can ask a question. You can ask, hey, Ed, what was the final score of your fantasy football game when you whooped Brian? You can ask any of those things. You can ask about any of my fantasy football stats from my 4 championship seasons. So, yeah, you can find us there on our YouTube page. You're distracting me. I'm trying to do a job here. You can find us on our YouTube page, and please interact though, and make some comments. Seriously, go ahead, drop in there, subscribe, thumbs up, drop a comment. What would you like to see? Maybe we'll do a fantasy football influence show. That's all I got, Brian. Back to you.
Hey, make sure you do that. You're going to see a little weird thing right up above me. It's going to be the whole subscribe, like, and all that stuff. Anyways, Hey, man, I think the entire conversation today was amazing. Everything except the whole part where, 1, you talked about Bill Belichick. Okay, I don't like that. And 2, all this fantasy football things that you're so great at. I'll see you in the championship, my friend. That's what we're going to say. I'm just going to put it down.
You have to win a game to get to the championship, Brian.
Okay. The dumpster fires are on the dumpster fire express is on its way. It's coming for you, bro. That's the name of my team. If anybody's listening. All right. Hey, this is a great episode. Thank you. I can't wait to piece together the other 2, Ed. We'll leave it at that. Let our audience wait and see. And then next episode, I'm going to talk about how we're tying in. We're going to tie in the mentorship piece, but we're also I'm going to talk about our previous 2 episodes before this one. The one, it was about followership, and then also about community service and how that ties into all of this. Okay. With that, Ed, I am Brian.
And I am Ed.
And this has been the Instinctive Influencer Podcast. We thank you so much for listening. We ask you to continue on your coaching journey. And Ed's reading. He's not really reading. He's acting like he's reading. Thank you very much for listening. Have a great day. Be a legend.
I'm Ed, and you're not.